bodywork is now in pretty good condition. I mean, it's still not concours by any means, but you know, from 5 or 6 feet away, it's quite presentable. But even from that distance, what isn't presentable are these wheels. They are in rough condition. I mean, the wheels themselves are fine wheel-wise, but appearance-wise, it's terrible. The paint is all discolored and streaky, and there's marks on it, there's curb rash. These are all shot blasted off from just years of wear and tear. And then there's the bolts, they're all rusty and nasty. And overall, they just let the whole thing down. So they're overdue a refurb. I think in 30 years, these wheels have never once got any attention. So that's long overdue. So to get the ball rolling, I've got the passenger side wheels off. And the first thing I'm doing is giving them a proper deep clean. Getting the degreaser in there, make sure there's nothing in there that will gunk up the sander or catch me out later when I'm painting the wheels. And it's also given me a chance to check their true condition, both inside and out. And so far, I see nothing to scare me. So with that done, the next job is to get them over and get them sanded. With the wheels now clean and dry, the next job is to get the center caps out. Now, as you can imagine, these are rare and expensive, so I need to be careful. So I'm going to put this little rag in here, and then I'm going to take this 34mm socket and nestle it in there really neatly, and then I'm going to hit that a few taps with a hammer, and hopefully that'll be all that's needed to get those out. Once the caps are out, then I'm going to flip the wheel over and start sanding it. Basically, I'm going to use a very fine sandpaper because I only want to give it a very light refurb. I just need to scuff it up a little bit just to make sure that the paint bonds to it properly. Now, there are a few little areas which might need special attention around the edges where it's been curved. Again, I'm just going to be very gentle with them. I'm not going to try and get them absolutely perfect because, well, frankly, I don't want the wheels making the rest of the car look bad. Well, my cap is out. It's in one piece. All the little clips are still attached, so that went according to plan, which is great. Now, looking at the cap itself, you can see there's a bit of a dent in it. It's got a metal insert that's been painted, and it's the paint that's starting to break down and fade and making it look a bit shabby. So I'm going to have a look around, see if I can find new inserts, and if I can, they would be absolutely amazing. But I'm not going to worry about those today. Today I'm concentrating on the rim itself, and as you can see, there's a bit of curbing here, and there's a bit of a gouge where it's clocked a curb at some point. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over these bits with maybe 250 or 400 grit sandpaper just by hand, and just get them down nice and even. And then once that's done, I'm going to scuff the whole thing up with 1500 grit sandpaper. That will even out the finish and also give the paint something to stick to. And then once that's done and I've cleaned it off with white spirits, the next thing to do is to begin this seriously tedious task of masking the whole thing up. The wheel is scuffed up, it's been wiped down with white spirits, and now the masking tape is on and I'm almost ready to paint. Now, I said before it's a tedious process, and that's because the only way to get the tape properly in between the rim and the tire is in little 2-inch segments. The tape is straight and the wheel is round, and there's just no other way around it. So all that's left to do now is put a little rubber bung in here to make sure no paint goes into the center cap area, and then I've got a sort of wider ring cut out of cardboard that I'll put around the rest of the tire to cover it, and then that's it. I just start applying layers. Now, the last stage, which is painting, is both the most satisfying and the trickiest, and it's tricky because it requires self-discipline. Wheels by their very nature have lots of little recesses and nooks and crannies, and if you try and go into every single one of them every time, you're going to end up with little puddles of paint and runs. The trick is just to dust it. Come at it once and then step away. Let it dry for a minute and then come back at another angle and do it again, and build up the layers gradually. And if you do that, you'll get a nice consistent finish, and you will get into every little nook and cranny. So these wheels probably have 2 to 3 layers of primer, 2 to 3 layers of top coat, and that's it. I'm not going to lacquer them because I like the satin finish. That's how it would have looked originally. There are still a few little blemishes here and there, but I'm not worried about those because you can see them now because the wheel is on its side and I'm a foot away from it. But normally wheels are at an angle and they're at ankle height, so you're far enough away from them that you won't even see those blemishes. So all that's left to do now is take the masking tape off, clean up a few little areas of overspray with some white spirits, and that'll be it. I cannot wait to get these back in the car. They're going to look superb. I can't have my nice shiny new wheels held in with these horrible, crusty, rusty bolts. So what I've done is I've got my wire brush on my drill, given them all a little bit of a cleanup, and then dipped them in enamel paint, the same stuff I used on the brake calipers, and that'll be it. They will finish off that wheel just beautifully. Well, there it is. There is the end result of a day's hard graft, but I have to say it was well worth the effort, because the wheels have lifted the appearance of the whole car. They have a lovely, consistent satin sheen on them. They're bright, they're clean, all the damage has gone off them. I couldn't honestly be happier with them. That, combined with the new chin spoiler, is just really bringing the whole exterior of the car together. Let me give you a quick look at one of the wheels, just so you can see it up close. I did spring for good quality paint, and the difference that makes is the way it comes out of the can is more consistent. It just gives you a more even and consistent finish. So they came up brilliantly. Really happy with my little bolts as well. I just did the tips because I think if I did the whole bolt, as soon as I put a wheel brace on there, the paint will start to chip. So, but the tips is all it needs. And then there's the little center caps, which now that they're back in, don't look so bad really. That's probably the best one, to be honest with you, but I will get ones eventually, but I'm happy with that for now. But there it is in all its glory. And honestly, this car, every time I do a little job to it, it rewards me in spades. Isn't that just a thing of beauty? Now, if you cast your mind back, you might remember that when I put the dashboard back into the Elan, the heating system wasn't working properly in it. I think I commented at the time that, I'll worry about that problem later. Well, later has arrived, because as the weather's changing, I'm having to drive the car with the roof up more, and I need to be able to control the temperature and the settings within the car, because it gets uncomfortable otherwise. Now, fortunately, once the car was running, one of the problems righted itself. Bizarrely, the airflow direction is controlled by a vacuum system. I can only assume this is a hangover system from the mid-engine cars, whereby using cables and levers just wouldn't be reliable. So to its credit, it works fine, and as soon as I got the engine running, this sprung to life. This bit, however, didn't. This is obviously, and you can feel it, this is obviously a lever system, and I could get the control knob all the way over to cold, and it would be lukewarm, bordering on warm, and I could get it to about here on the hot side, and then I would meet a lot of resistance, and if I pushed harder, it would start pushing outwards against the control panel. So clearly there was a problem there. I was nervous that taking out this whole dashboard was going to be required, but fortunately, and I'll try and do a bit of tricky work here, get my lighting going. There you go, look at that for production value. Fortunately, that isn't the problem. It's a simple lever system in here, and I'll move this little knob, the little heater knob there, and you can see the levers moving back and forth, and all that was needed was to adjust this lower lever, just move it in a little bit so that it would operate in its full spectrum. And the reason why it wasn't ever going cold is because there's a little switch up there that turns off the heater valve in the engine bay and stops hot air going into the heater matrix. And until that little lever was able to reach that, it was never going to go cold. But now it does. My heater system is working perfectly, and the best part of it all is I didn't have to take the whole car apart, just the glove box. That is the best kind of repair, free and easy. You might remember last week I was digging around behind the dashboard trying to get my heater to turn all the way cold, and I discovered the reason it wasn't working is that the levers that were connected to the rotary knob had gotten out of whack and it wasn't triggering the vacuum switch. And what that switch does is it sends a vacuum to this little hose right here, and that in turn is connected to this thing, which is the heater valve. Now what it does is it creates a vacuum in this little chamber here, and that acts on this plunger. That in turn is connected to a valve in here, and it stops the hot water flowing from the cooling system into the heater matrix, thereby giving you cold air. Now a few people at the time flagged to me that this is a known weak spot and I should investigate mine, and sure enough, when I got mine off today, I understand why. They're made of metal, and because of that they corrode, and this one is actually starting to break down around the lip here that holds the hose onto the valve itself. So that's really close to letting go, and if it does that, because it's a pressurized system and it's the cooling system, basically what happens is it dumps all of your coolant out on the ground and you are left on the side of the road. So it's a small part that creates a big problem, but fortunately a lot of car companies use a similar system, so replacement parts are cheap and plentiful. This is a heater valve from a Volvo. It's about 25 quid and it's better pretty much in every way. Firstly, it's made of plastic so it won't corrode. The pipe connectors are twice the size for extra peace of mind, and even the effort required to close the valve is considerably less. So this should be better in every single way. So thank you to everybody who pointed me in this direction. You have definitely spared me some blushes. When I saw the condition of the heater valve, I thought it might be a good idea to flush out the heater matrix as well. Now the heater matrix lives on the other side of the bulkhead under the dashboard, but it's fed by two pipes at the back of the engine. Sorry about the glare, sort of in here-ish. Now I already had the inlet pipe disconnected from the heater valve, so all I needed to do then was disconnect the outlet pipe, which you can just about see in there, which feeds into the back of the thermostat housing. Now when I went to disconnect it, I discovered that the Jubilee clip wasn't fastened at all, so there was almost nothing holding that hose in place. So in doing this simple job, I uncovered two really serious weak points in the coolant system. So that was a few hours very well spent. Now when I flushed out the heater matrix, I also discovered that the coolant was not a very good color. In fact, if I tilt it forward, you can still see there's a lot of rusty residue still in there. So I've had to flush the coolant system out and replace it once again. So I think that's a lesson that I've certainly learned from this car, that if you need to put water in the car to get you out of a bind, so be it, but for God's sake, flush it out afterwards and replace it with coolant, because it's very clear to me that engines are simply not designed to work with anything else except proper coolant. Water just destroys them, it eats them from the inside out. Another job I've taken on this weekend is the installation of a wind deflector. It became obvious when it was cold a few days ago that the cabin gets buffeted with a lot of cold air when you're driving with the roof down, and with winter coming, I want to be able to enjoy the car roof down whenever possible. So I've picked up this deflector. It's actually an aftermarket item for an Audi TT, and I think it suits the car really well. I don't know if Lotus ever made an official one. I've seen ones that purport to be for Lotus Elans for sale for 200 quid, but I'm not prepared to pay that. That was 50 quid and it does the job exactly what I wanted to do. Installing it wasn't too bad. There's a fiberglass bulkhead through here that I've bolted this down through. There's a bracket underneath to secure it, so it's really solid. And crucially, it doesn't impede the roof going up and down. So all in all, it does the job that I wanted to do. And with that, I'm really at the point now where I've done all the things that I want to do to the car to make it mine, and I've done all the things that I need to do to make it work. So insofar as a classic car can ever be finished, this one is pretty much there. The only thing that needs doing is the paintwork, and that's not going to be something that I'm going to do anyways. So that's it. That's Project Elan, pretty much as I named, as it were. And of course, you know, everyone asks what's my next project going to be, and I don't really know, to be honest with you, because they have to kind of happen organically. But while I'm waiting for that to happen, I thought the next thing I would do was start tearing the Mini apart again, because, well, I think there's something wrong with me.